MuseScore Café for today, April, whatever it is, I always forget to look, 22nd, um, 2020. And this is my weekly MuseScore Cafe series. I'm Marc Sabatella, the MuseScore Director of Education. And we just pick a topic to talk about and start talking about different aspects of using MuseScore and creating music in general. So I have I keep telling you guys that MuseScore 3.5 is coming imminently, or at least the uh, beta or alpha version maybe is coming imminently, and I really, really thought it was going to be out by this morning, but it isn't, so that's fine. Maybe next week. Um, but I came up with a nice idea. I think something I think we're going to have fun with, and I should also, it's connected to something that you may have gotten notification of. If you guys subscribe to me, and by the way, I never do oh, please subscribe, click the link, but do, please. If you're watching this, you probably are interested in it, go ahead and subscribe. Um, you probably got notification that there was an event on Monday, and there was, and then you probably realized it was a little bit different. It was something that I do for music educators. I do this kind of annually or semi-annually, but then I did a special one this week, specifically on using MuseScore in the context of online music education. And because there's all sorts of, I mean, everyone who's teaching music right now is essentially teaching music online. That's what there is. And lots of people have essentially no experience with it. And, between these cafes and the online courses I've put together, and just what I know about MuseScore, I had some information to share. So that's what that session was about. And one of the things that came up as I was putting that together is there's a thing that is, it's a thing, and it's no problem, Jean-Luc. I just took your message off just because I figured we didn't need to go into that here. Um, so um, there's a thing that you've probably seen before, and I'm going to show you the very first one of these that I saw, at least that I saw that was like directly connected to any of what's going on today, and that is this. Okay. So that is a thing. Putting these videos together. This is the Colorado Symphony, our kind of local hometown symphony. I know a couple of, well, quite a few of these players probably. None of the ones in this picture. But this idea that you can record an ensemble with everyone playing their parts individually and then assemble them into this video. So this one, you can tell by the way it keeps cutting different shots and is sometimes showing everyone, sometimes zooming in on just a few. You know that this was like done separately and then edited together. But any number of teachers have seen things like this and say, oh, I want to do that with my school ensemble. And then they go to do it and realize, oh my God, that's much harder than it looks. And there are apps that can help with this, but it's still, anyone who looks at this and thinks, oh, well, you can probably just go into Zoom and or Google Meet or any of these kinds of video conferencing apps and just have everyone play, it's not going to work. Colleen, I think you probably remember when we tried to do that with CJW just to prove that it wouldn't work. So um, it's you can't do it live. The realities of just the delays, the synchronization between things. Like I already know that you're hearing my voice about 2 seconds after I actually speak, or longer, depending on whatever. And everyone's got different delays happening, so it's impossible to synchronize live. But it is possible to assemble, individual videos if they were all recorded. Like maybe the conductor records their part and then sends it to everyone, and then they all play to that recording. That'll help keep them synchronized, and then someone else gets to assemble them all and make sure they remain synchronized, and there are apps that can help with that. So anyhow, that is this thing that is like now become basically the obsession of tons of music teachers now. How can I get this happen? Because people see things like this, they assume it's easy, and then they expect the music teacher to be able to do that. Or the music teacher sees it and thinks, oh, that's probably easy, and they try to do it. So figuring this out, as I said, has become a bit of an obsession among music teachers right now. So we're not going to do that because it's hard. And it's we would have to like all record ourselves playing and whatever. That's a little different from what we might normally be doing here, but I figure we can do a composition this way in MuseScore. That's my idea. So I have this concept in mind I'm going to talk about. We'll flesh it out. We'll get started on it today, and then hopefully get to follow up and figure things out. So let me tell you how I envision this working, and please be giving me feedback on the ideas. Actually, let me go back. So this is my presentation mode here, where I've cleared away all my palettes and inspector and all the toolbars and everything. I think I may have showed you how I did that once before, but it was under workspaces. I created a new workspace, and then I did a bunch of stuff to make that happen, and that's now my presentation workspace. I also have a clean one, which is basically the same thing. So now I'm going to go back to my normal one, which is my own customized workspace. And here's my thought on how this might work. So we're talking about collaborative composition. We're talking about each contributing something to this composition. And by each, I mean I count 13 people watching this live right now. But I also know that over the course of the next week, there will probably be well over 100 people watching this, is how things typically go. So I want to get started on this today. Those of you who are watching live can give feedback into the process. But by the time we're done today, I want to have the process down cold, have decided how it's going to work, and then, maybe put the call out to other people who want to contribute to it. And we're going to create a composition together. Now, this could be a recipe for chaos, but I think I have a way to make this work non-chaotically. And to see how that's going to work, I'm going to go on some amount of trust that if I go to musescore.com and look for Canon in D, Bell, there's going to be a million people's arrangements of this that are, they are what they are. But I've played this piece so many times in so many different contexts, so many different ways. I have no concept of what the original version actually looked like, and was sort of hoping that maybe one of these would actually bill itself as the original version. So if anyone is able to here's one that claims it's original. Yeah, well, these look similar, right? All right, so if I am to believe this, it's written for 3 violins with continuo, basically piano accompaniment. That may or may not literally be true. But whatever. My goal here isn't to like exactly mimic the Canon in D by Pachelbel, but we are going to think about how this works and how we can organize a composition this way. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the play button on this for anyone who's not familiar with the piece, which, yeah, there might be a few of you who aren't. I didn't actually mean to stop it right there, but that's okay. I'm going to restart it in a second. So I'm going to guess most of you have heard this piece, perhaps played this piece, are familiar with it, are maybe totally sick of it. That's possible also. That's okay. We're not going to rewrite this piece, don't worry. But we are going to borrow some of the techniques. So the reason it's called a canon has a semi-specific term in music, and the idea is it's a piece in which you really only have to write one melodic line, and then all the other parts that come in play that same melodic line in some well-defined variation. So in particular, in this case, we start with the violin with that line, but then 2 measures later, violin 2 comes in with that exact same line. And then 2 measures later, violin 3, or is that a cello? Did it say cello? No, it just says violin 3. I thought the other part said something about a cello. Then violin 3 has that exact same melody. Now, canons are not always, so that you could also think of as a round, right? You sing, one person starts singing Frere Jacques, and the next person comes in singing Frere Jacques a couple measures later, and it just sort of lines up with itself and creates nice harmonies. So a round is a specific kind of canon, maybe, where it's literally everyone coming in with the same melody in the same key, just displaced rhythmically. But a canon doesn't have to be that. A canon could say, oh, when the second person comes in, they should come in twice as fast. Or they should come in a perfect fifth above where it started. So all of these things are possible within the realm of what is a canon. So um, uh, in order to make this all work as a composer, you have to play by a certain set of rules, so that when you do these things of having these voices come in at different points, that it's going to harmonize with itself. And so there's all sorts of complex ways you can do that. But the canon in D, the Pachelbel canon, chooses what's actually a super simple way of doing this, that is very effective, and I think will lend itself to a collaborative approach. So what's going to happen here is there's a series of chords here. I'm going to sing the bass line. Right, so that's the bass line. It's a D chord, A chord, B minor chord, F sharp minor chord, G chord, D, G, A. That sequence of chords continues throughout the piece, uninterrupted. And so that melody, the first melody, is one possible melody that you can create over that chord progression. It's like maybe the world's simplest melody you could have created on it. It's all moving by step, and it's all chord tones. F sharp is the third of this chord, E is the fifth of that chord, etc. But then when the violin continues, so now the violin 2 comes in with that same original melody. Violin 1 continues with a new melody. I say new, but it's still quarter notes moving with the chord. D, C sharp, B, A. I should download this thing so I can actually open it up in MuseScore and play it. Thanks, Joanna. Let's go somewhere better than my test thing. I actually have, do I have a Café section in here? I should. I don't know if I do. Oh, I do. Look at that, Café. That's where I'm going to save this sucker. Okay, so if I open this up in MuseScore, I can not have to sing you all the parts. Although, you know, it's useful to be able to sing. I'm not a singer, as you know, but it's still interesting and fun and useful to be able to sing these parts. So, oh yeah, when I was doing Zoom, I had to play with audio settings to get things to work, and I think I need to replay with them to continue to work. So give me a second here. API MME, interesting. Oh, I didn't mean all preferences to default. I really wish I hadn't hit that. Oh well, what are you gonna do? I meant to hit this button. I had customized shortcuts and stuff, but I'm constantly resetting preferences on this, so no big deal. I'm not worried. All right, there we go. All right, so here's our melody. So that's maybe a second melody that comes in with that same chord progression. And then the violin 2 takes up that. So basically, the violin 2, when it comes in, it's going to do everything that violin 1 did. It's just going to do it 2 bars later. So here's the violin melody starting on D. Here's violin 2 melody starting on D. Meanwhile, violin 1 says, yep, I'm going on. And now I got this eighth note measure. And then 2 measures later, violin 2 comes in with that same. And then violin 3 comes in with that same eighth note melody. Meanwhile, violin 1 is like, okay, I'm done with eighth notes. And it has that 16th note melody, and then violin 2 picks up that 16th note melody, etc. So the deal is, as long as each one of these 2 measure melodies here follows that same sequence of chords and is relatively faithful to that sequence of chords. Like here, when we have quarter notes, they're all literally chord tones. That's, maybe above and beyond what's necessary. Bach may have chosen to put some passing notes in there, and but Pachelbel was going for simplicity here. But certainly, when we go into eighth notes, we have F sharp, E, D. This E is not actually a chord tone of that F sharp minor chord, but it's a passing tone. It gets me to this D. And for the most part, I think we're going to find most of the notes that he's using in the eighth note passage are mostly chord tones. Certainly on the beat, they're going to be chord tones. The off beats will mostly be chord tones, but occasionally he's going to indulge himself in things like that E, which is it is a chord tone if we call it a seventh. And I think you'll probably find that most of the non-chord tones, like here, G, we have an A chord, and then we have an A, and then a G in the melody. Well, that G is the seventh of the chord. So he's really still mostly just arpeggiating the chord, not doing anything fancy. Until we get here, we have a G chord, we have the D, in there, and then we have our A chord here, but the melody stays D. This is a very specific classical technique called a suspension. We have this D left over from the previous chord that's sort of now suspended over the A chord, and then it resolves down to the C sharp. So he's introduced a suspension. I can't. Da, da. At that moment with his D is singing, it's not in the chord. Da, 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 da. So at that moment, that D is not part of the chord, it's suspended over it. That's like an allowable non-chord tone in this language. Now that we're going into 16th notes, he's going to have to throw in lots more things. That C sharp is what's called a neighbor tone. It's just a step below the D. It's not in the chord, but it's just a step below. We go visit the neighbor and we come back. And then he does the same thing. He has the same thing here. He's got chord tones, and then he's got E. Then he goes and visits his neighbor, F sharp, which isn't in our A chord. And he doesn't actually come right back to the E. So technically this isn't called a neighbor tone. This has another tone. Escape tone is sometimes used. It's there's classical theory gets really uptight about what to call each and every non-chord tone, and I'm not going to be too concerned with this. I'm concerned with the idea that we're focusing on chord tones, we're using non-chord tones in fairly well-defined ways. And I'm talking and I'm talking and I'm talking, and I see the video is going, and I hope you all are just so fascinated that you aren't coming up with any comments. But I'm about to say, now, does everything I'm saying make sense? Can we do this? I think we can do this. See, I think if we set ourselves up a simple chord progression like this. I think I won't use Pachelbel's chord progression. We'll create a different one. I have sort of one in mind, but I'm open to modifications of it. We create ourselves a simple chord progression like this. It'll be, 2 bars of quarter notes. Now, notating this as quarter notes really slow, yeah, we could do that, or we could notate this as twice that speed. By the way, if you haven't seen this before, I love this feature. I select everything. Oh, see, now that's because I reset all my settings. I get my tours back. I like the tours, but I don't need them, so no. Continue, close. All right, I select everything. I cut it. Bye-bye. But now I'm going to paste double duration. Now, instead of everything being based on quarter notes, it's based on half notes. And then what was eighth notes are now quarter notes. I think modern eyes might see this as a more appropriate way of writing it rhythmically. Maybe, maybe not. Cool. So, all right, good. I'm glad to see people are fascinated. All right, so here's the idea. I think if we create ourselves a simple little, so now it's a 4-measure chord progression. That sticky keys thing bugs me. Okay, how did I do that? I thought it was like pressing the same key in a row a bunch of times that triggers it. But I guess not. Anyhow, shift. Yeah, shift a bunch of times. Disable this keyboard shortcut in ease of access keyboard settings. Yes, I want that. I want to disable that because this bugs the crap out of me. Sticky keys off. Allow shortcut. There we go. No. There we go. Won't see that anymore. Okay, that was worth it. So if we create ourselves a simple little chord progression like this, and then basically everyone can write as many of these little 4-measure melodies over that chord progression as we want. And I can then assemble them in ways in which they will overlap. I mean, totally, check this out. I'm going to do some surgery on this piece. I'm going to take away this version of the melody. Just get rid of it. Say, what if Pachelbel didn't write that? What if Pachelbel decided to go right into this section? Oh, I got to change the tempo now too, right? Instead of 40 beats a minute. Who writes at 40 beats a minute? That's crazy talk. Okay, 80 beats a minute. I like better. So see, those two melodies were never going to have been heard together in the original version, but they are now. And yes, paste, double, half, and double duration are back, and they're back better than ever. Because it used to be, it was a plugin, you had to download the plugin, and it didn't work that well. It didn't handle a lot of things you would want it to handle. It wouldn't handle multiple voices. It wouldn't handle triplets. It wouldn't handle a ton of stuff that you would want it to handle. But we added it back around MuseScore 3.1, I want to say, probably about a year ago. So it's right there in the edit menu now. No plugin to download or anything. It's just there, and it works. It handles pretty much everything you need it to handle within reason, I guess. So yes, it is a good thing. And similarly, I could say, well, what if it would happen? What it would sound like if I took one of these little passages here, and took this little passage, and took that passage, and we heard that right at the very beginning. Right? It totally works because all those melodies, even though Pachelbel in the original, those two melodies were never actually heard at the same time. Well, I shouldn't say they never were. It's possible that by the end of the piece, No, that's not the same. Um, yeah, I think it's probably literally true that we never hear those two melodies at the same time in the original. Because I've heard so many different variations on this, including like all these improvised variations and things that I do as a jazz musician. Um, uh, but I don't see it, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't happen. So the point is, these two melodies were written over the same chord progression. At some level, they're going to be compatible. They might not be ideally compatible. There was one in what I have going over here. I didn't love the fact that both these two violins had F sharp, like right off the bat. There was that little doubling. So I wasn't crazy about that aspect of it. If I changed this to just that, it'd make me a little happier. As opposed to what I originally had, which was just. So hear how the two F sharps at the same time. It's not a problem. It just wasn't my favorite feature of that combination. Actually, when I hear that now, it makes me want to go down to an A. Anyhow, whatever. Because if I had just the F sharp and the D, and then here I had D and F sharp, it's the same two things that then just reverse themselves, right? When I had this as a D, I hear an F sharp and a D, and then I again hear an F sharp and a D just with their roles reversed. That's a clever little trick to avoid repeated notes, but the ear still hears F sharp and D, F sharp and D twice in a row. You're not aware that the instrumentation changed. It just sounded like two violins doing the same thing. If they had been different sounds, not both violins, maybe I would have been more aware of the color change. Anyhow, whatever. The point is, it doesn't matter that much. These things all kind of work together. And yes, you can obsess about these little details, and that's where maybe have the difference between creating good music and great music. Or good and very good, anyhow. Or fair and good, whatever. So I think we're going to create a simple little chord progression to work on. And anyone who is watching this is going to then submit your own version of this, of not the whole thing. I'm taking it upon myself. I'm going to be the assembler of all this. I want people just to write melody lines, 4-measure melodies. You write one 4-measure melody, great. Write 10 of them, that's great. I might not use them all. Do what you want. But if you write the sequence of 4-measure melodies that follow that chord progression, so in other words, just the violin part is what I'm talking about. So let me undo all these changes and just get back to where we started, including all the. There we go. Back to the beginning. If I look at the violin 1 part, it's just one line. It's a melodic line, and it's every 4 measures. It's basically, or in the original, it was every 2 measures. So basically, it's a sequence of different 2 measures of 2-measure melodies that are all following that same chord progression. So, Pachelbel's version. Well, let's look at this thing. It's 56, 57 measures long because it's got the end. So 56 measures of the thing actually happening, and it's 2 measures each. So 56 divided by 2, I used to be a math major. What's that, 28? I'm going to go with 28. Sounds good. It must be 28 2-measure melodies that he wrote here. So I don't want anyone to write 28 2-measure melodies. But if we get 10 people to each write 3 of them, or 50 people to each write 1 of them, you know what I mean? Or 50 people who write 4 of them, that's great, because no one ever said this is going to have to be a canon. Like, the thing that makes this a canon is if I then look at the violin 2 part, it's going to look exactly like this, except the initial rest is going to be, instead of 2 measures, it's going to be 4 measures. Let's check that out. So here's violin 1, and we position them the same way, so it's really obvious. Okay, violin 1 has a 2-measure rest and then starts with this. Now when I flip to violin 2, does this not look exactly the same? The only thing that was different about it actually is that the staff name took a little more space, and so it pushed things over. Let me delete the staff name because it's going to be funner. Funner is a word. It is for me anyhow. All right. Violin 1 and then violin 2. Do you see anything change? I mean, realistically, the only thing that changed is the name, the staff name. Violin 1, no, violin 1, violin 2. Pick any other measure. It's the same dang thing. I'm pointing at the screen. You can't see I'm pointing at the screen, right? Control tab. Oops. Nope. Control tab doesn't move between parts. I forgot. But yeah, it's clearly the same part, just starting 2 bars later. So, but we don't have to limit ourselves in that way, right? So I can say, well, if we've got more than 50 measures of melody, great, or more than 28 different melodies, more than, we make the piece as long as we want, but we don't want to bore people to death. If we have more than 30 different melodies, well, that's great. I don't have to have the second violin part be the same as the first violin part 2 measures later. I could just have it be different and just different layers of these things. So I can assemble these things to create the texture I want. I can start simple, build it, and like if some people's melodies are mostly half notes and other people's melodies are mostly 16th notes, or there's some that are more complex because they aren't mostly anything but they're varied, I can kind of control by where I put these things the overall complexity of the piece. So that's what I'm going to take on as the person assembling all this, is making some musical decisions like that. And all you guys got to do is write some melodies. So yeah, so this is, as I said, this is the Holy Grail, the idea of playing in an ensemble online in real time. As I said in the description, that's the Holy Grail. It is not possible. That is basically the long and short of it. There's one app called Jam Kazam that attempts to do it, and it requires you to have like hardwired internet connections and do all this really fancy synchronization stuff to have any chance of working, and then even then, it's hit and miss. But all the videos you've ever seen of that are not in real time. They are recorded and then assembled separately. So basically, and that is basically what I'm talking about doing here. But instead of assembling videos, we're assembling a composition. But it really is the same process with a video. You establish a set of ground rules, and in our case, the ground rule is we're going to write melodies over this 4-bar chord progression, and then you write your melodies and you submit them. We'll talk about how that works, and then I assemble them. So what am I saying? So yeah, you record. The way it's done with videos is you record all the videos separately, but the videos have to be synchronized already, right? They have to be at the same tempo. So you'd either have a conductor to follow that everyone follows, or a click track that everyone follows, or something. Or in the case of the app called Acapella, which is something that a lot of people are using for this, in the Acapella app, basically one person records their part, the next person then gets a copy of that video, and they record along with that video. And then that creates a combined 2-person video that the next person then adds their part to, one at a time. And so it's synchronized. Each person does a little of the work of synchronization. So by the time it's done, it's done. That's I think the model that app uses. Anyhow, it's not, you can't do it in real time. So composition is going to be the same thing. We talk about sometimes, like we know Google Docs lets you edit. 2 people can edit the same document together, and it's really kind of nice and clever how that all works. Yeah, it would be lovely if someday we could do that with MuseScore. I will say that collaborative text editing is a lot more. It's just a simpler problem to wrap your brain around. Even what does it mean for 2 people to collaborate on the same text document than it is for 2 people to collaborate on the same composition. It's a little harder to even comprehend what that might mean. But if we limit it the way we're limiting it here, it would be possible to do. You could just, have your own staff where you type in your own notes. But it's going to be, well, that's just not feasible. We don't have a way of having that collaboration in MuseScore, but we can certainly each create our own staff, and I can assemble them. So Ninjam lengthens latency. All right, that's interesting. Plugin, yeah. All right, so yeah, there's so there's definitely technologies, because it's definitely a problem that people want to solve, but it's just a hard problem. And so it's when I call it the Holy Grail, it's like everyone tries to figure out ways of doing it, and they're all struggling to get something. But when you see something that's done, it's not because there is a simple solution for it. It's because people are experimenting. which is basically what we're doing here. But I think I've defined the experiment to be relatively achievable. So the goal here is everyone is going to have one staff. And you're just going to have a sequence of 4-measure melodies. It could be just one 4-measure melody. You could write as many of them as you want. I'm going to pick the ones that I want and assemble them how I see fit, because that's the only way I can see that part of it working. I suppose we could have a committee session next week or a couple weeks later where we do some assembly by committee. We'll see. I guess I'll see what we come up with, how much I get in the way of submissions. So in order for this to work, we need a chord progression, and that's basically what we need. So one thing that I will say is, just in recognition of the reality of the time, so this is the canon in D. Let's not make ours in D. What key should a canon about the coronavirus COVID-19 be? It's going to be in C, okay? So we're going to have our thing's going to be in C. It's going to be our canon in C. So you are welcome, and yeah, hopefully that's helpful. That acapella app is the one that I would look at if you're trying to do this, to see, because that is the one that has solved the problem the best. I haven't used it myself, but people I know who are not major techie type people have successfully used it. It's work, it's effort, but it can be done. So acapella is probably the simplest way. If I were to do it, I would probably use OBS. And I should actually show you, every once in a while you've seen this window, right? Where it's now you see a window in a window. This is what I am broadcasting with. You can see my mic levels here, etc. But you see my little face here? I can actually add, and I'm just going to do this for a second because it's kind of fun. What am I going to do? I'm going to add another video capture device. Add an existing one. I'm going to add the landscape version. Make it visible. Okay, you ready? Here it comes. Did it come? No, it didn't come. I don't know what I'm doing with this app. No, I figure things out when I need to, but I guess I need to enable it or something. I think I've added it, but I didn't enable it to be part of this, and I have to do something. Anyhow, I can assemble in this video more faces of myself, or whatever, of other people sent videos. So I could technically assemble videos in here to do a live thing. They just won't be synchronized. So there's different editing software I would use if people sent me videos and I needed to assemble them. So, but anyhow, that's all doable in video editing software. That's not exactly what this is. This is more broadcasting software. Anyhow, hopefully I didn't actually mess anything up with what I just did. I don't think I did. I think that's the one I just added, and I probably should delete it, but I'm not going to because it might mess things up. So I'll get out of there because that probably gives some people a headache to see that picture within a picture. Okay, so is there a deadline? So let's get the ground rules down here. I think the best way that I know to make this happen is going to be to use MuseScore.com for this. So because if I don't want to have to manage submissions coming in 100 different ways and then figure out how I'm going to say, I want everything in one place, and the best way to do that is going to be to use MuseScore.com. So if you already have a MuseScore.com account, great. If not, I want to walk you through a little bit of the process because it can be a little confusing. And so Jean-Luc, you can probably maybe speak to that a little bit also. But what happens is, what am I doing? That's not what I want. I want MuseScore.com. Okay, so if I go to MuseScore.com, of course I have an account already. So I'm going to go to a private browsing session and go to MuseScore.com. And it gives me these different options. Log in with Google, log in with Facebook, log in with Apple. And I think, boy, I don't even know what happens. I haven't tried the login with Google. I don't know if this will work in a private session anyhow, but let's see. I'm going to give it one of my email addresses that I don't normally use with MuseScore and see what it does. Anyhow, the point is there are two different types of account. There's the MuseScore Pro account, and hopefully it's going to accept my password without me having to type it. Oh, already used. Okay, that's fine. Um, I'm going to call it Mastering MuseScore. Already taken, huh? I guess I already did. I already created one. What do you know? All right. All right. So anyhow, you create this account, and it is now just a free account. So I use the login with Google option, but there's other options also. But at some point, you'll see the GoPro thing, and sometimes you're just presented, depending on how you get there. You might be presented with a like start free trial. If you click the start free trial button, it's going to ask you to start a free trial. It's going to ask you for credit card information and all that. So if you don't really feel like doing a full MuseScore Pro account that's like $50 a year, then don't start the free trial instead, and don't hit the Go Pro. Just do what I did, and I think I could have done it just as easily by not using like let me try another version here where instead of using the login with Google, well it's I thought it wasn't supposed to remember any of that stuff, but apparently it did. Um, I guess maybe within the same session it remembers. Okay, so instead of log in with Google, I can create an account, right? So if I say create an account, I think I get some of the same stuff. I'm asked for an email address, a username, and then type a password, create new account. So just don't use the free trial or Go Pro buttons unless you want to. So if you want to, by all means, help. It helps fund a lot of things relating to MuseScore and so forth. But that's totally your business. Um, Anyhow, once you have your account created, then you can upload scores as easily as within MuseScore. You say, well, let me create a score. That's basically Pachelbel's canon melody. And so that can just hit the Save Online button right here, and it will then take me. Well, because I'm already logged in, it'll just do it, and it gives me a little window where I can type in information about my score, because of course this score I didn't have a name on, so it doesn't know anything about the score. But it's going to start uploading the score, and then what you'll want to do is don't have it set to private because no one else will be able to see it. You'll want to set it to either public or unlisted. If you set it to unlisted, that's fine, as long as I eventually find out about it, will be good. Set it to public if you want, but of course you're just uploading a melody. It's not a whole piece yet. The whole piece is going to be public. So this is the thing I'm going to have to really emphasize here, and I'm going to write all this stuff down, and I'm going to put it in a place where we can access it. But in fact, I'm going to set that up while we're on here so that people watching the video will have the information. But I'll also add it as a comment underneath the video. Um, if you're going to contribute to this, I need you to relinquish any like copyright things so that we don't get into any sort of issues where, oh, I wrote this piece and I wrote this part of it. This piece is going to be public domain. I am putting the whole piece under public domain, so you have to be okay with your part of it being public domain. So when you upload your score, you're going to have to make sure you come down here where it says the copyright settings and change it from none to public domain there. Um, and basically, Creative Commons copyright waiver is the official legal term for how the license is going to be set up. So if anyone submits something that's not set up that way, I will be bugging you to say, okay, please, you need to change your license to that, or I can't use it. So once you've uploaded your score, so let me go ahead and upload this thing. I'm going to make it unlisted. I'm surprised that's such a tiny little score. I'm not sure why it's taking as long as it is here to upload. That's actually maybe a little unusual. Is it my original work? Yes, you're going to say yes, it's your original work. That's necessary in order to make this downloadable. Because if this is not your original work, then people will need pro accounts to download it. So that's different from being public domain. So I've said that it was public domain. I've said it's my original work. That's what you're looking for. And then you hit the publish button, and then it will take you to the appropriate page on musescore.com. I thought it was going to take me there automatically, but maybe I neglected to hit the button that says openmusescore.com, whatever. If I go now to my scores, I will see our lovely untitled score here. So what we're going to want to do is add this to a group. So I'm going to create a group right now that's going to be the group for this, and then we're going to add to it. So I got to remember how to create a group, but first I'll show you how to add to the group. Do I remember how to add to a group? How about these things right here? Add to, remove from group. So you do this, and you're going to get something where it sees all the groups that you are members of. So I'm a member of all these groups. I don't even know what half of them are, but at some point I apparently someone asked me to join a group, and so I did. So you're going to join the group that I create. So to create a group, you don't have to do it. I have to do it. So don't worry about that. I will get that group happening. If anyone happens to know right off the bat how to create a group, I've done it before. I just don't offhand remember how to create a group. I remember that it was somewhere unexpected a little bit. But I'm going to try the old-fashioned MuseScore.com create group. Does that turn up anything? No, because that searches sheet music. I got to search the other way around. Create group, MuseScore.com. And then maybe this will get me some good help information. Groups. Love it. Start here. You can see all the groups. Create a group. Click the add a new group. Love it. Okay. Not a thing. Okay, so that was old information apparently. All right, so whatever. I'm gonna have that, and I'm gonna have the link in the comments by the time we're done, and I'll have the chord progression. But I'll try to get the chord progression happening right now, because that way you can have some input into this thing. I think it's going to go like this. I'm going to enter the chord progression using chord symbols and as Roman numerals. And I think I want to go something like this. C, C, F, G, A minor, D minor, G, C, G. If I had the build of MuseScore 3.5 loaded right now, you'd actually be able to hear that. That's one of the new yeah, that's just the way it is. I'm testing how things work on MuseScore.com. I use it, but I don't use it extensively enough to always remember how to do everything. And I feel like I know I created a group fairly recently, but not recently enough for me to remember how to do the dang thing. But I would have thought that when I said all groups, that was actually going to have had a new group button or something in there, but it's just not the case. So yeah, it's somewhere in there is the way to create groups. How about my groups? Yeah, just not a thing. Whatever. I don't want to get too wrapped up in that. So if I'm going to just really quickly enter some notes for this. But if I had 3.5, the beta version of that, or the current build for it, you could hear the chord playback feature that's coming. And that doesn't really connect well to there, but that's okay. We'll just hear this. So that's our chord progression. Yeah, I get that. That was just a snarky comment, but it's a legitimate thing that, I have nothing to do with MuseScore.com design or anything like that, but there's definitely things about it that I haven't figured out that if I were a king of the world, I might change some things. So this is the chord progression that I'm looking at, and the thing it has going for it is it's mostly primary triad. So I said I was gonna put Roman numeral analysis on it. Oh, since I just did that reset, I had a shortcut to find for Roman numeral analysis, but it is gone now because I accidentally reset my preferences. But I can go here, and so that's 1, 4, oops, space again, 4, 5, semicolon also moves by beat, 6, 2, 5, 1, 5. All right, so any of these, oops, did I type G? Yeah, I typed G apparently. All right, so this is going to be our chord progression. So I'm going to create the group, and I'm going to add the this framework down to it, and I'll set it up in a way where all you have to do is take that thing, and actually, even better idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create this thing with 2 staves. I'm going to add a staff. I'm going to add it as a separate instrument, I think. So I'm going to add, cello to be our bass instrument. And I'm going to let it have all right. I think I'm going to, yeah, I'll just go with this octave, but all right, so that I want to go with more like the Pachelbel tempo, not maybe as slow, but what is it? Control Alt T, Shift Alt T. That's what I did. That's what I meant. 80. So I'm going to create basically a sample score for you guys to download, and it's going to have the cello part. Let's check this out. I'm going to select all of the similar elements, meaning all the Roman numeral analysis and chord symbols. Yeah, I guess chord symbols and Roman numeral analysis are considered the same kind of chord. I gotta check something out. Select more. Same subtype Roman numeral analysis. Haha. That gives me just the Roman numeral analysis and not the chord symbols. Then I can cut, click down here, paste. Lovely. So that way the chord symbols are above the top staff, Roman numeral analysis below the bottom staff. That's how I want it to look. So, and then what I can do is I could actually create a third staff for you guys. And that is going to be another melodic instrument. And I don't know what melodic instrument you all will want to use, but I'm going to go with clarinet because, by gosh, I was a clarinet player. Did I not add it? I guess I didn't. Clarinet. And then move it up to the top. Actually, I'm not going to use clarinet though because is there a C clarinet in here? We're gonna pretend C clarinet. Good. C clarinet. Because I don't want to deal with transposition for this purpose, because some people might not be comfortable with how that works. Clarinet just has a nice range, but I'm going to say you can pick your own instrument for this, and that way we'll have a variety of different instruments in the ensemble. But remember, here's the thing. Pick an instrument to write for, but I won't necessarily use that instrument because I might be combining things in different ways. I might use your idea for that instrument, say, oh wow, that was a really good idea to use the French horn, and use some of your ideas there, but I might put other people's stuff onto your staff, or say, those are some really good ideas, but I'm not actually going to use the French horn, I'm going to move that over to the viola staff or whatever. I don't know. All this sort of stuff, you're going to have to trust me on these things, or we're going to have a follow-up. But this way, what I can do is I can take these 4 measures. I can also take these chord symbols now and do the same thing. I'm going to say select, more, same subtype chord symbol. And now I've selected just the chord symbols, and I can paste them to my top staff. All right, now I can go make my piano staff invisible. Ha! Now we'll hear the playback, but you've just got a nice blank staff. Enter some melody into it. So that when you do your playbacks, now I can select these 4 bars and just go repeat, 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 repeat. There. R to repeat. And now you can start writing some melody, you know. I'm gonna start on E because now I'm gonna use a non-chord tone because I can. Here's my first little bit of melody. I'm not saying I'm going to use that melody. I just wanted you to hear how that's going to work. So what I'm going to do is create the group, not make you watch me go through the pain of remembering how to do that, get it all set up, and then I'm going to upload. I'm going to get this score kind of finished up. I'm going to upload it. I will then post a comment to the video. The video will be, you know, after it's live, it takes a minute or 2 to process, or 10 minutes to process, and I'll be doing this other stuff at the time. I will then post a comment to the archived video. So that's what you guys are going to have to do, because I don't have like all of your email addresses to reach you individually. If you subscribe to the video, subscribe to my channel, I can post to the video channel, and then you'll know that I posted the comment. Was the piano pasted? It's invisible. Yes, it's invisible. I did that. I pressed I for the instrument list and made it go away because you don't need to see it. It was there to hear. I will probably, I might change it from piano to something else or do whatever. So we have a suggestion. Create a group, dashboard, right column, groups. Click create a group link. Oh, really? Really? Is that a suggestion like maybe that's going to work, or is that that works? Well, I'm gonna try. Dashboard. In the right column, groups. I just didn't scroll down. So my UI suggestion is let's move these 3 buttons up here. No? I guess maybe some people don't belong to this many groups. I've been on MuseScore.com for like 10 years, but I don't use it that much. So I'm guessing the number of groups I belong to is not that different from other people. Create group. Look at that. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Great. All right. So this is going to be called sorry for the name of this, but I've already decided on this. This is the coronavirus canon. And I can edit all this other stuff later. It's going to be an open group. I think I can change all this other stuff later. It's not really going to be a canon. So maybe that's not the right name. I'm still going to think about it. Whatever. It's going to be posted in the... let me see what I can edit now, if I can edit the name and link for it. Looks like I can. Okay. So we'll call this the... I'm just going to see if I change the name of it. It looks like it's letting it change things, right? I'll call it the virtual canon. And see if it likes me to change names. All right, so I don't know if that's what I'm going to call it, but it might be this. It might be the virtual canon group, but whatever. I will post the actual link once I have everything all set up. I will post it and I will add it as a post to my YouTube channel. So if you are subscribed, you should get the notification of it, or you can just come back and view this video later, and I will have everything set up. So that is the deal. As I said, I think this is going to work. I don't see any reason why it couldn't. I expect to get all sorts of different... Oh, am I back? Am I back live? I can't even tell if I'm live or not. What the heck? You don't want to see my email. I don't want you to see my email, but whatever. Am I live? I have no idea if I'm live or not. Oh, okay. Okay, sorry about that. I have no idea what happened, but I was wrapping up anyhow. So, again, if you have comments, if you have any further suggestions before I just finish this job up and get everything all posted, let me know. I did think about trying to have a somewhat more complex chord progression, but I've decided not to. I don't want to. Um, I don't. I don't want to force people to deal with more complex chord progressions. So this is simple. By the way, if you don't know anything about chords, feel free to sign up for my basic theory class, my basic music theory class. Ooh, I get to put in plugs for things, right? It's still free. I said for a limited time I would make my basic music theory class free, and that is still the case. I don't know how much longer I'm going to continue to do that, because I did work for a year on it, and this is, supposed to be what I do for a living. But, it felt like the right thing to be doing. Basic theory. Oh, I'm not. I think this window doesn't even have the Café. I need my dashboard here. I think I don't even have the dashboard up on this computer, only my other one. Hello. So anyhow, if you sign up for the basic theory course, you can, if you're not already up on, I'll put it in the chat, but I'll also put it in comments when I post the other comment. So it has lots of lessons on things like really understanding what these chord symbols mean. It's not necessarily on how to write music. That's going to be the more advanced theory stuff that I start getting into with the next courses that I'm developing. So blah 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 blah. End of commercial. Um, uh, um, but I wanted to go with a simple chord progression. What I will say is, for anyone who's watching this who's like, oh, but I already know that, feel free to use additional techniques. Like, I deliberately didn't put a seventh on this G chord, because if you're not familiar with seventh chords, I didn't want to freak people out. But if you are, I put a seventh in my melody there. If you know what sevenths are and how to use them, do it. If you know that between this G and the A minor, that it's going to sound cool to use a passing G sharp, I should say, diminished chord, do it. If I see a bunch of people doing it, then I will just make sure I use all those together and line them all up, and I'll make the adjustment so it works. Don't totally reinvent the whole chord progression. I probably won't find a way to use that. But if you just want to do things like add a little passing chord here, or maybe change this A minor to an A7, a secondary dominant leading to the D minor, by all means, make those in your melodies. You can either tell me, in fact, if you know what you're doing, you can just edit the chord symbol to actually tell me what it is that you're doing there. Again, don't go crazy with it, or it's not gonna synchronize with anyone else's, and so I'm gonna say, oh, that was really cool, but I can't use it, right? So just keep it relatively simple. But if if it pleases you to actually change the chord symbols to reflect what you're doing, by all means do it. Otherwise, don't even worry about it. But yeah, you can feel free to incorporate. I incorporated an appoggiatura here. It's a note that's not in the chord on the beat, and then I resolve it by step. I'm incorporating non-chord tones, and I said you could add melody notes that suggest passing chords or that suggest substitute chords. You can do these things. I will figure out ways of making use of it all. Again, as long as you keep it all within reason. So, that's the deal. So again, I'm gonna finish this up. I'm probably gonna change this from clarinet. I'll probably change it to viola. I want the default instrument to be one that works well for melodies. It has a decent range where you can go higher or lower, but I will say, by all means, change the instrument to whatever you want, but stick to one staff and just write your melody for that instrument, and then I will either use it as is or, copy and paste it around. So you've got to be okay with me, taking some of my own creative license. With triplet pattern, yeah, you can totally you can do whatever you want rhythmically as well. So I chose to make a melody here that was basically quarter notes, a few half notes, a few dotted quarter notes. But if you're going to write several, like this, I just wrote one melody. I could write 10 different 4-bar melodies, and some of them might be this type of rhythmic simplicity. Some of them might be triplets. Some of them might be 16th notes. Some of them might be weirder combinations. I might even want to do one where I do this. Actually, I'm going to make it be that. Nope, I didn't mean that. I meant this. All right, check out this melody here. All right, I'm not as crazy about it when I hear it as I was when I wrote it, but the idea was I wrote a melody that was whole notes, and I let this be a non-chord tone here. Probably I should have gone back up to a C with it, and then since I didn't really like my flat 9 there, much as I usually love flat 9s, I didn't love it there. I'm going to just dump it. Okay, and at this time now I want to change this to I want to change this to a half note, a dotted half note. See, there you go. So that was like a crazy simple melody, right? I can use those. I just wrote one, right? And maybe I wrote the best one right there. But now your task is to find another simple melody, or if you choose to go that way, because we can use that on top of other things. It's going to sound really nice once we combine all this. I'm getting really excited by the thought of this all working, and so I really hope some of you do contribute some stuff, and we get some things out of it. So yeah, by all means, do whatever you want rhythmically, but just stick to the 4-bar pattern. Stick relatively close to those chords, and we should be fine. So again, I may or may not be broadcasting. Seems like it hung up again. Maybe I'm still broadcasting. It's so weird. My phone thinks that I'm not, but my computer here thinks that I am. So I think I'm done. I think I'm good, right? So I'm going to get all my stuff together, get it all posted, get it posted to a comment to the video, and post to my YouTube account, because there's some post facility. I'm only semi-familiar with how to do things on YouTube. So it should be possible if you either come back to this video or you subscribe, you'll get notification about things, and then you'll get all the appropriate links. But that could well be the link right here, wherever it was that I created that dang thing, this virtual canon. This might be the link, but I'm not going to commit to it, so I'm not going to paste it. But feel free to try that link again later. All right, so I am broadcasting. All right, so I'm going to wrap up so I can get this finished and get on with a few other projects that I have to do today. But I want to get this started, get this put up there, and then you all, I will say a week. So that was a long answer to the question of how long you have. You got a week. Next week, by this time, I want them all submitted. And I will then take the following week to assemble them all, so that 2 weeks from now the thing is going to be done. I don't want to rush myself or anyone. If I get a zillion submissions within the first 2 days, I might just say, you know what, I'm done taking submissions. I have that right. Because I just don't know. But I am going to try to give it a week so that people can take some time. But I'm not giving you a week so you can write 200 measures. I'm giving you a week so that you can write the 4 measures or the 20 measures that you really want to write and do a good job. And I know that some people aren't even going to see this for several days. So that's the deal. Okay, so I still think next week MuseScore 3.5 will have its alpha release, and I'll be able to tell you all about all the new improvements coming in that. I still think that's what's going to be the Café topic for next week. So All right, let's do this thing. So I'm gonna sign off. I'm gonna get everything posted, and so within an hour you should have all the information that you need to get going. But you kind of already do, right? You already saw that thing. You can already start thinking about writing some music now. It's just going to be I will post the actual score that I have set up, and I'll make sure that it's set up the way I want it set up. Okay, that said, I will take my leave and wish everyone good health and successful music making over the coming week, and I will see you soon. Okay, bye.